What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Lay. I'm a librarian at the Santa Clara City Library. Thanks for joining us for this discussion and talk with Paul Richardson. I'm going to throw out a little bio before we begin. Paul Richardson is known by his stage name, Paulie Rhyme. This is the artist, educator, father, and expat living in Handa, Japan. He has performed and collaborated with people all around the world, and he continues to perform mostly in Asia and is currently fronting a funk band in Nagoya, Japan called the Bacteria Sound Machine, which is not apt for this time frame, but it's all good. And it's releasing projects through his own company, Infinity Funk Music. As an educator, Paul has been teaching for over 10 years. His career started first in San Francisco, then Nagoya, and now he teaches and runs Chibu International School in Handa with his wife. A long-time learner, Paul has a BA in political science from Hiram College, a teaching certificate from Cal State Teach, and an MEd from Cleveland State University. Everybody, let's welcome Paul.
Thank you.
My brother, how have you been, man?
Man, considering I've been doing well. I've been trying to take care of myself. Family has been really important, friendships, just really trying to stay connected to people. So it's been going, and it's been different. School has been, education right now is at the forefront. We've been fast forwarded. That's what I've been telling people. It's like the Jetsons right now. We are there. So I'm excited about what we can do to help kids learn and grow, and what we can do to learn and grow. So, I'm
glad that you have an optimistic mind frame for that, because probably a lot of your contemporaries and people are probably scared or hesitant or just don't know what to do. And it's a trying time because of the COVID, but we have to do it. We have to do it for our future, which is the kids.
No choice. Yes. No, we have to do it. You're right.
So what have you been doing during your sheltering in place, just to, keep your mind focused, balanced, and at least joyful,
Yeah, we so in Japan they shut the schools down in like early spring, so like right March, and so I spent a lot of time with Maya, which is my daughter. So she's a 10-year-old. She's at the she thinks she's 16, but she's only 10. So dealing with the preteen, or she's not even really a preteen. She thinks she's a preteen. So dealing with her, and we've been trying to get out, get some exercise. So we start playing badminton, and then but because it gets so hot. So reading, lots of reading, lots of books, and then talking to people. I've actually found that social media is more positive, even though it's really negative. It's kind of been positive for me. And when I feel like, hey, like things are not feeling so well or getting negative, how can I be positive? So then I've just been writing. But Japan is, yeah.
Yeah, it's great that you have a lot to do. So, and I shouldn't just be surprised by that. Definitely, you're a person who has a steady head on his shoulders, and like, all right, it's not about being cooped up in, and we gotta reach out, connect. And I know that Japan was probably one of the slower countries to get on, COVID lockdown. I read all about it during February. I was in Hawaii during my last trip to anywhere free before lockdown started. Luckily, I came back, but it's my last memories of the world before COVID-19. So I live with that, but I'm glad you're safe. Your family's safe.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Yeah, man. So before we get into more of your life in Japan, let's talk about your upbringing in the States. So you basically grew up in Cleveland. So can you tell us the elements of your upbringing that helped shape who you are today? What was young Paulie like?
Young Paulie was very weird. No, I don't. So I'd like to say my mother, Denise Weezy, she was 16 years old when she had me. So I was raised by a teen mom. My parents were super young. They got divorced when I was 2, which was very impactful on me. We moved around relatively a lot, and then my mother got remarried. And so that relationship, she married a Vietnam vet. So that was pretty hectic growing up. And I found the big thing that I necessarily didn't like at first, but I ended up embracing is every day my mother would make me read for 1 hour. So any season, as soon as I came home, it's like get a book and read. I remember sitting on my porch in front of the door, looking at all the kids playing while I had to, with a book, and I had to spend this hour. I remember that. I remember that. But I learned to love to read. And so I would just read everything. She bought me, back in the day, they would come around try to sell you these encyclopedias. So I had this whole encyclopedia. It was like something I kept until I was in college, and had all these stories from different places and different countries. I spent a lot of time on Saturday mornings watching Kung Fu movies. And my uncle was Nathan. He was in New York, and so he was really into hip hop. And so then, of course, I learned to be into hip hop. And that, really was something I learned. And I just learned to embrace different cultures through reading. Man, I guess,
Yeah, we got something in common with that. I have a giant Britannica set when I was growing up.
Yes, bro.
It was partly the only books in our bookcase, but because I didn't drive, I was a kid, and walking to the library was sometimes far. Weekends definitely was opening up whatever letter I felt like reading that day, and just browsing that thick tome and looking at each little word or association or animal, and trying to learn as much as I could. And I think I used that for a lot of my research, which is not a good, reference tool for everything, but that's all I had. So, I didn't know how to research. But Britannica, encyclopedias.
We do what we have. And I think kids are in a great place because they can, even if they don't want to use the internet, they can. They have access. And you get your little blurb, and you're trying to make it work for whatever you're trying to, like, this is not enough information. I gotta ask something.
What's this about? Tom Sawyer? There's only 2 paragraphs. I'm just gonna put it in.
Hell yeah.
So you alluded to hip hop, definitely, and I want to know, when did you start getting involved in hip hop and actually being, not just entertained by it, but practicing it for yourself?
Right. So having access to go to New York. So my uncle, my grandmother was in Brooklyn at the time. So when I was a kid, the first thing we were into was like getting the cardboard and trying to dance. Break in B Street. I had a Jerry curl. We'd go downtown Cleveland. There was a little store where you could get the sweatshirts and the sweatsuits, and then you get your name in. Like, just they take an iron and they put the name and your sign and all that. So we was really into dancing. That was like the thing. Me and my cousin Tiger. And so first dancing, like really into dancing. But I wasn't really a great dancer. And then because I grew up in the 80s and the transition from kind of that traditional hip hop to like when NWA dropped, Just Ice and KRS-One, No Minded in the crack era. So we kind of like moved out of that. And then, I was pretty much a fan until college. And so my homeboy, Matt, he had a radio show at this small school called Barn Wallace. And he was like, I went to like just see him. And I was like, man, you got a radio show? And so then I ended up getting a radio show at Hiram. And a bunch of my homies, they used to just freestyle. And I was like, oh man, come to the show and, freestyle and this and that. And it was funny because I was really more into, like, at the time I was into the church and singing. So into choir. So I started off really singing. And then even in high school, we would do like barbershop quartet and do more singing. Silk and all those guys, boys and men.
You're saying Paulie got pipes, huh? I
tried my young days. Jodeci was big, so I did a bunch of talent shows, and so people were really shocked when I started rapping and that started taking off. They were like, "I thought you was a singer." I was like, "Yeah, I don't know what happened," but also I was really for poetry. So just writing poems in high school. And then in college, that kind of transitioned into rapping. And my uncle, he knew, Blessed Dead Sean Price. And so Helter Skelter at the time, they had this producer in New Jersey. And so he was like, man, you need to make a demo. And I think his name was Shamik. He's like, you need to make a demo. And I was like, make a demo? I don't know. So I went on my radio show and I played an instrumental and then I rapped on it and I'll try to make these raps. and then I went there and I was like, yeah, I have a demo. And he was like, freestyle. And I was like, oh, freestyle? He was like, nah, freestyle. He was like, I don't want to hear your demo until you can freestyle. And so I was shook because it was like, that's old school. Like you went to someone's house and they had a producer, he playing beats and he was like, rap. You know what I'm saying? I was like, man, I got these 3 raps. I put them on the tape. He's like, so he's cool. So this producer was like, yo, do this. You got some talent. So then he listened to it. He was like, oh man, you got some talent, song structure and stuff like that. He was like, but you gotta be able to freestyle. So then he was like, go back to the cave, sharpen your blades. And then, and so from there, I just kept at it. And then my friends, I bought a drum machine. I saw Bjork on the beach, Much Music. She was making a beat and I was like, yo, you can make a beat on the beach? I was like, I gotta get to, and it's weird. I was like, I gotta get to the beach, right? And so I had this drum machine. I threw in my dorm room the mic through, like the way the things were set up with the lights. I threw the mic and then we just started recording. And then, it was from there. We did a show. We did a talent show. I did a talent show with my homeboy, Miguel. And then I did another show at Hiram. That was one of my first shows. And then I booked the venue because I learned from my stepfather, he was a jazz musician, that when he was in music, they took everything. Like they took all his publishing. Like he just kind of got done dirty. Yeah. So from a very early time, I said, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna own it. So even that whole, it's really about building networks and stuff like that. And then, so yeah, I learned how to do that. But when I moved to the Bay Area, or before that, we got a band. So first I got a band. And then we moved to the Bay Area. And then it kind of just took off. I think I was ready. Like I spent this time from like 99 to about 2004 working with people, putting out music locally in Cleveland, doing shows. I had a chance to promote a lot of different shows. But, the Bay Area, man, it's like a jetpack, man. They put it in your back. And if you ready, and there's so much, and not to say that I had a lot of support in Cleveland, especially through venues like my homegirl, Nikki and Dan, and like there's a spot called the Grog Shop. That's kind of like the Elbow Room in San Francisco, or which is now Oakland. Yeah, so like those places really supported me. They supported Itoko, because she was singing house at the time. And then we got together, and then she started rapping, and then it just was like, what? It was like Giant Panda. They were like, she raps, she sings, and it's amazing, but she raps in Japanese in Cleveland, so it just really jumped off. But that prompted us to say, hey, maybe we should try to take this to a different place. And she really wanted to move somewhere, I think, where there were more Japanese people, where there was more food, there was a history, if she was going to stay in the States. And so, yeah, we moved to the Bay Area.
Yo, yeah, because I know, like, reading the background, and I listened to those Bandcamp tracks, so she's she's an amazing person. And, I mean, I already know your music, but I was like, yo, she's dope. She's pretty fresh. And the fact that you guys met so long ago in Ohio, right? And then, got married, then said, hey, we got to go to the Bay. We're going to move to the Bay Area. And then you move to the Bay Area and create these careers for yourselves. So before we jump into that chapter, when did you start, diving into education? Because you did start going into higher academics to get a career in teaching, or learning more about education. So when did that kind of jumpstart, and why did you pivot in that direction?
So initially in Hiram, I wanted to be a high school teacher. When I was 19,
oh wow,
I went to student teaching. And as you can, I mean, you can just see it. Like, I'm 19 years old. I'm all in my hip hop outfits. I'm in my culture, deep, knee deep. I walk into the school, and they're like, "Is that a new student?" And so it really was just like, I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not mature enough. And I'm sitting in the class trying to study, and the girls looking, I'm lightweight looking. I'm like, yeah, I'm not ready for this. I'm not mature enough. We too close. And so then I was like, oh, what else can I do? And I was like, oh man, I really love politics. Mm. So then I found a good mentor, and this guy, Nozar Alamoki. He became my advisor, and then I started learning political philosophy, started studying like Sun Tzu and Locke and Rousseau, all these different Nietzsche, and still reading was very important to that, and also dialogue and talking about it and synthesizing it. What does Machiavelli mean about this? Mm. What is life, liberty, and the pursuit of property? All these things. So just like digesting and talking. And Hiram is a small liberal arts school. There were about 800 kids at the time, and then we all lived on campus, and then the teachers lived around the campus. So we basically became this family. And so there are lots of debates, lots of just sitting late night, just going at it, talking. And so I think that also kind of shaped my voice. But yeah, so then I wanted to be an educator, but then that didn't work. So then I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a lawyer. I don't know why I thought this. So I was like, gotta go political science. And then my other mentor, which I think is important for people to have good mentors. So my other mentor, D. West. Things as I was running or helping to run the African American Students United group at my school. So we were doing lots of events, bringing speakers. We brought Nikki Giovanni. We got to see Bobby Seale. We were working with different organizations. And so she was like, you should really go into adult education. And I was like, adult education? And I was like, okay. So I ended up going back to BW where my friend was to work in the dorms. So I worked in an international dorm, which is funny because Itoko ended up living in that dorm maybe 2 or 3 years before I got there. And I didn't know this till after I met her. And I was like, wow, what are the odds, right? And so that was very key. So I started doing adult education and getting my master's. But then I started rapping. So I stopped, and then I moved to the Bay Area. And as an artist, you are trying to find ways to kind of balance your art, and also you need healthcare, you need to pay for things. And I was touring, but I needed to find something. I was like, what do I have a passion for? And I love working with kids. So I started subbing. And once I started subbing, I was hooked. It's like, yo, this is amazing. And then like this kid, what is that school? About on the Fillmore, there's a school that I subbed at. I can't remember the name. It was a high school. But a kid came to me and she was like, you're the first Black teacher I've ever had. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, you're the first Black teacher I've ever had. And I was like, I'm a sub. She was like, yeah, but still, it's amazing. I never really thought that Black people taught. And so that just really kind of put some fire into me. Like, this is meant to be. I really try to listen to the universe, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. And so then I found this program, Cal State Teach. And then I found that in San Francisco, there are independent schools or private schools that allow people to teach as assistant teachers. And then I went to Berks, which is an all-girls school, and right by Ocean Beach. And they had a really good program. So I went and I subbed there, and they were like, yo, you should join our program. And then I did that. And then I met another mentor by Nayo Brooks, and she currently is a head of school or assistant head of school somewhere in Oakland, I believe. But she was at the time, and there wasn't a lot of Black people there. There was like Renee, who was my friend, Roz, who was running, I think, upper school. There was a few of us at the school, but primarily upper class, old money, San Francisco, beautiful campus, all 400 girls. And this was before Maya, everything. And I was really like hip hop dude. And they were like, this is unique. You're really a rapper. You're not like this. And they were like, can you rap? As I rap, and they were like, whoa, you can actually rap. It's not a fake thing. I'm like, no, I'm actually, touring, like, doing this thing. And so they were like, yo, you should do this, and you can use your hip hop when you're teaching. And I was like, wow. So actually, during that whole time, I had my kids rapping. So we would do poetry in 3rd grade. And my teacher, Nayo, she really encouraged me to like just incorporate my personality. But also I was learning a lot of history, like about the Ohlone. I was learning about Japanese internment. I was learning about migration. So I was like, wow, not only as a teacher, it's not just about teaching, it's also about growing and being a learner. And that was really important for me because I felt like it's something I could do forever. And I think that you have to find things that you can do for free. Would you do that for free? And I was like, yeah, I definitely would teach for free.
I say that to myself all the time. Would you do this for free? And if you can absolutely say yes, then you know you're on the right direction and path. Yeah.
And then so we just kept going, and then I ended up going to another school at CDS. And in between that, I went to South Africa to teach with Teach for Africa, and just kept at it, man. And then it was like, what am I going to do? And I wanted to move to South Africa. I came back and I was like, let's go, we going. And I just had this, like, I felt like just kinship, and I felt all these things being, in the motherland, and all of these kind of stereotypes and all these things kind of broke down. And I was like, man, I want to move. And my wife was like, yeah, we got to move to Japan first if we move in anywhere. So she was like, why don't you just start a school? And my wife is really into education. I mean, from just the fact that she learned a whole different language. She moved to a whole different country. She also lived in Australia before she came to the United States. And she really loves to read too. Like you can see kind of back here, those are all Japanese books for Maya, right? And then up there are the Japanese books for my wife. And then, so, we're a reading family. And so she was like, you should start a school. And I was like, start a school? Okay. So, yeah, we did it.
I love that your wife's so proactive about like, yo, let me just tell you what you need to do, husband. This is what you need to do. Yeah.
And she's always right. She's always right. It's weird.
Because I met you probably maybe a few years before you moved. We were doing that event, and when I heard you were moving to Japan, definitely it was around 2015. Just that the fact that you're kind of laying down the foundation. What were some of the obstacles for yourself? And I'm sure you went to Japan previously, throughout your relationship with, Itoko and, so you were familiar, but this time it's like a long-term move, So what were some of the obstacles, personally you had for yourself that you had to kind of confront and deal with in living in, I guess, in Handa City? Because it's not, is it near any of the major hubs, or is it kind of just in an Aichi prefecture, far in this countryside?
So it's about 30 minutes outside of Nagoya. So 30 minutes south. So it's actually on the bay. I basically still live in the bay.
Yeah.
But in Japan, and hella bridges. And I was like, Maya, it's like living in the Bay Area. It's like we're driving to Oakland. She's like, no. It is, but it's I want to go back to California Day. That's what she really misses California. But yeah, it's very suburban, I would say. So I lived in San Mateo for most of my time, and then I lived in Daly City. And I would say that actually Honda is very much like San Mateo. In terms of, it's a smaller city. There's about 120,000 people. It does have its own separate economy, but it is in its own identity. But it is part of Aichi and that. So I think the hardest part for me was just moving from California. So I really loved California. And I really loved the community that we have built from San Jose, San Mateo, Daly City, Oakland, Sacramento, Tahoe, like all of those things. And you start to really, as you travel, like you go to Oregon, you go to Washington, you go down SoCal, you really, even going to Reno. Oh yeah, you start to really meet people and just really circling. I had a place with Rey and Cusso in San Jose, like a little studio, and those things are just natural, right? And you really become family. And so that was really hard to deal with. I mean, I was also dealing with a lot of police harassment, so that kind of pushed me to go that way. But yeah, I think the hard part was like, man, my friends, my and not even from my family, like my homeboy Dario, like I really felt like being ripped out of something. But I also felt like it was time to move. And I felt creatively like it was a good place. So when we moved, we were lucky because we moved to my wife's hometown. And so Handa is where my wife was born. Her family's here. Our family is very a part of the community. My brother is a Buddhist monk. Itoko's father was a Buddhist monk. They've been here for a long time, which is a whole different kind of thing. And also, I didn't move here with having to find a visa. Like I was sponsored by my family, so they were like, "Come through." My mom's, Itoko's mom, she's moms, she was like, "Yo, we get the apartment," like everything. So that part of it was really easy. I do think like learning to socialize, and because I don't speak as much Japanese as probably I should, that was difficult because trying to find friends, trying to be social, trying to still do art, it felt very lonely. And so I had to kind of fight through that. And also, yeah, just finding things to do, like getting my hair cut. That was like a big thing. Can I get my hair cut? Where how can I travel? Technology is helped me. And also I met people who like Japan. I was like, yo, like I've been to Japan. Okay, I'm coming. So I thought that I wasn't going to see anyone. I thought I was going to be completely disconnected. But I've actually built stronger bonds with people, and people have come to visit. And so that's been really helpful. So I've been lucky. I would say the one thing that I was surprised about is not necessarily dealing with Japanese people, because there's certain expectations and certain things that I've been surprised about, certain things I've not been surprised about, but dealing with other foreigners, that's been more surprising, especially in the age of Trump, because there's a lot of global racism and white supremacy that's being pushed. And I knew it, but it was definitely more like, wow, like really? You really like Trump? And you're not from the States. I don't understand how that works for Australia or Canada or these other places, but there's an agenda. So
it's a tough thing when the culture is, when there's a culture that creates kind of division, and it's due to racial issues that make it hard to kind of just have a ideal vision of a cohesive community where everybody gets along, especially when it's up in your face, sometimes violent and aggressive, and that kind of leads me into more of these questions as being African American and being in Japan. I mean, I can't say that do you see a lot of African Americans where you live, or even in Japan? Because the few times I have visited, I barely, you had to really just shout out, "I'm here, I'm here," right at the crosswalk, see me, like. And
yeah, so yeah, keep on.
No, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, how's it felt, for yourself? I think you're a very outgoing person, and I think that's helps you, as well as the foundations your family in Japan has helped set up for you and everybody. But, Black people have not always been favorably viewed in Japanese pop culture. This for, decades, especially in it's like in the comics, movies, there's a caricature that continues to persist, and it has tropes of being very racist, and especially if it, it showcases Black people in a certain way that's only seen through film and movie, and it's not true. So I've been grateful that lately you've been in discussions with a lot of other people doing these Zoom conversations, especially one of my favorite artists, Brooklyn Terry. I've been a fan of his since the 90s. As a dancer, I looked up to the Mop Tops and, an Elite Squad. He was dancing behind some amazing stars, but, he's just lived in Japan, also like you having a mixed biracial family. And it's great to hear these conversations because I can only imagine that, during Black Lives Matter, what kind of discussions have been just spoken into the ether in Japan, or has it dissipated and is it just more small little groups and factions who continue the grassroots fight?
Yeah, so I would say initially, so the first time I came here was in 1999. And so when I came here, I came straight to Handa. I didn't really travel. I didn't really see a lot of Black people. It was just strictly kicking it with the family, learning about the family and the area. And then as I started coming more, I started to travel a little bit more. And then I saw that there were different communities. And then when I did a tour over here through his homie Dwayne and my homie David, then I started to meet other Black people and artists. And then you started to see that there was a larger African population or African-born population, and that it was more complex than just Americans coming over here. And I also got a cousin, my cousin Dolores, and her family lives in Okinawa. And so they run a church out there, and they've been there for, I don't know, like 15 years or something. And so there is a relationship between, the military, and that's always kind of like Big Brother is always around. And that made me have to think about who I am as an American, because I don't think that I had that kind of conversation, especially with Maya, because she's very much identifies I'm American, right? Even more so than being Black or Japanese. She's like, I'm American, I'm Japanese, and I'm maybe Black, right? So she's going through that as a child. But for me, and being raised in Cleveland and being raised to be very conscious about, Blackness and being a Black person, to me, Black first. And then all these other things. So that was just very interesting. But I would say by the time I got here, Japan had moved forward. And so there are larger populations of people. And I would say even more, I've expanded. Yes, I'm Black, and definitely I'm looking for Black people. But like in Honda in particular, there's a large Vietnamese community.
Oh, what?
Yeah, your people's out here, fam.
Yo,
Out here.
I gotta visit. That's crazy. That's crazy to hear.
And,
anyways, go on.
Yeah, and actually, people coming from Vietnam is the largest population of immigrants right now in Japan. So Vietnam, China, and then I think it goes like somewhere in Southeast Asia, maybe the United States. But that population has been moving here, and that relationship is very strong. It's also kind of problematic, but I think that people are trying to work through those things. But yeah, I was, because we do this international kind of thing where where they get the American flag, they were like, come be part of, tell us about America, tell us about the United States and this. And I was like, well, I'm gonna tell you about California, Ohio, but and it's gonna be a little more diverse maybe than you used to. But they were like, no, we love that. We want all of that. We want to have a real connection. And so, that's how I learned that there was a large Vietnamese population in Honda. And I was like, oh, for real? I was like, okay, let's connect. And there's a lot of young people. And so anyway, so let's keep, I'll come back to that. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But, I think because, I didn't actively seek people. I would bump into people. I knew a couple people. I did feel like, man, I need to be around some of my folks. But also I think hip hop culture is really something that I was looking for. So I was seeking that even more. So my homie Peace, who lived in Brooklyn, he is a DJ. I met him, and so then we started hanging out, and he started introducing me to DJ Shark, who's out of Kyoto, and I started meeting homie Yuji, he's running a dance studio. My other homies for this place called Yamikuro where I DJ. So I really leaned on the culture, and I was like, yo, I need to find the hip hoppers, okay? And that really helped me, I would say, because people who are into hip hop, like if you don't necessarily know Japanese, they're a little bit more sympathetic to you. We have connections beyond language or, you know, the physical. We have, you know, this kimochi, this soul connect, you know, this feeling connection. And so I went to that quickly. And then when I started teaching, I started meeting other people. There's a large Jamaican community, and there's a large connection between Jamaica and Japan because of the island folks and reggae and all these things. So I really made more connections with people who were not necessarily American. And then we would find people because Maya is, you know, half Japanese, half Black. And we see people in the mall. I remember meeting these people, and we were doing something, we were playing. And I was like, yo, there's some Black kids. And my wife's like, I was like, that's their mother. She's like, what should I do? I was like, go talk to her. And so then we met, and so they were these kids, Leah and Tasha, their family is in Tokoname. And Tokoname is where the airport is, it's an international airport, and where Costco is and stuff. So that place, which is further down the peninsula, but it's actually more international. And lots of people go there for pottery and art and things like that. And their mother makes pottery. And so her husband's from Cameroon. And so then, you know, we connected. And so that was kind of Maya's first friends who were also mixed, different, but similar.
Right.
And so we were able to that connection, and then, you know, just trying to meet people. And then of course, when Black Lives Matter happened, I gotta give a shout out to Black Creatives Japan, because I met them. So there's some Facebook groups, and I started to really see the value of Facebook groups. So Black in Japan is one, and so you can do different things and learn about different people. But Black Creatives Japan was really something. So like, yeah, art really saved me in that whole transition and trying to find people, like-minded people. And so, yeah, I do. And then also there's a large Brazilian population, which who knew? So I found out about that. And we eat all the same foods. So when I want black eyed peas, I go to the Brazilian grocery store. They call it something in Portuguese, I can't remember. When I want collard greens, I go to the Brazilian store, right? When I want oxtails, I go to the Brazilian store. And I started to, which I learned in South Africa, so that helped me, but that we are a lot more connected culturally, and as people of, you know, the diaspora, you know, people who have went through that transatlantic slave trade and been scattered, and you could tell through those things. And I think people were like, he's not afraid to come in here. And I'm like, yo, no, I need them collard greens. So, whatever y'all call that.
I need to stew these real quick. Get some flavor.
Yeah, and it's funny because, yeah, learning that we are so connected through various ways, culture or food or books. I've really been able to kind of expand who I am as a person. So I feel grateful in that way. And people think of Japan as this kind of homogenous place. Mm-hmm. And actually it is on the surface. And it is visually, and I think they promote it that way because it makes people who have traditionally had more money and ways to travel, i.e. white people, feel safe. Like, I can come to this place, and they, to a certain extent, have fed into those stereotypes to draw people in and get their money. And that goes all the way back to post-war. Mm-hmm. And even, you know, learning about that relationship between Japan and America after the war, and the U.S. actually occupying Japan for almost 10 years and rewriting their constitution and bringing in jazz and bringing in all of these stereotypes that you alluded to in the manga. And you can see that in this relationship of the U.S. being big brother, positive and negative. And so when you understand that, then you get here and you're expecting these things, and then you're like, whoa, no, there's a lot of people here, but that is not, you have to be here. You know, you gotta be here. So I've learned that.
and that's something that you alluded to, because you can, I think of places like Hawaii, who act, when
Yeah.
they became state, granted statehood, they were already a sovereign nation in their own respect, with their own monarchy and language and customs, and then it becomes a part of kind of U.S. occupation, in one way or another, depending on who wants to see it that way. But that's when you get also the American culture filtering in at a rapid rate. So one of my things is watching, growing up as a hip hop head too, watching all these Japanese hip hop heads in the '90s come out, and I'm just like tripping out. I'm like, they're dancing, they got dreads, it was crazy, and as a Vietnamese kid, I didn't see that in my, ethnic culture, and I was always allured by that. But it also, speaks to me is, as Black culture filters into Japan, from blues and jazz and hip hop, right, and R&B, right, because it's big in the J-pop scene. The music, you can see it and hear it in the way people sing, as in K-pop too, right? But is there awareness that it comes from, the Black diaspora? And I mean, I'm sure after many decades, it's starting to, filter in. They should understand that. But do they see it, or do they like kind of just like, oh, well, we made it our own,
I think both. I think there was this time, and so in doing kind of the knowledge on Japanese hip hop and culture, because I think it's important, because I live in Japan, so I should have a base. And then, my brother also, when I first got here, he got me a Shaka Zombie CD.
Shaka Zombie, yep.
And then I went to the store, and I was like, yo, I want to dig for records. I got me a Mudo record. I got, it was like, who was it? Mudo and Digging in the Crates. Also got Soul Scream. And
Dead Large, yeah.
Yeah, so like I started to just do, just learn. And I think that it was really like Buddha Brand. All these people were very influenced by New York, and they were making trips, because Japanese people typically like to travel. And so they look at New York as a mecca. So yeah, we going to New York. And then of course there's a connection with California and Los Angeles and like, San Francisco and San Jose and all these Japan towns, and this history of Japanese people being in the States, which I've had the schools of Japanese people on here, because it was like, yo, man, Japanese people have been in the States for like 100 years, 150 years, something like that. They're like, really? Like what? I'm like, yo, yes, you can go there. You should go there. I mean, New York is cool, but go to the Bay, bro. So yeah, anyway, I had to like learn about it. And I feel like there are people who definitely are historians and definitely trying to learn about it, but that's a small percentage. Mm-hmm. And then when you get especially into people who have embraced Cali culture, or even Cholo culture, or whatever, like Chicano culture, you want to call it, not Cholo, but Chicano culture, and they have embraced that, and they've had to learn more about that, because then that's coming from hip hop kind of into gang culture, into Latino culture, Latinx culture, all these things. And so they've had to study way more. So in Nagoya, where the Yakuza pretty more, the gangsters are more prominent, were traditionally, they were really into more gangster rap, really more into Cali culture, low riders, tattoos, all that stuff is way more prominent. Dudes with bald heads and wife beaters, khakis, and yeah, you like, where am I?
Yo, that's crazy, dude.
So they've definitely done more research, because they're also going into almost more of a subculture, or multiple cultures at once. But yeah, there's definitely people who just do it for fun. And the one thing I would say, through the dance, and because dance in some places are part of the school curriculum, they look at it as just like learning English. It's like, it's the thing. It doesn't exist separately. It's not necessarily Black culture to them. And so they've had to be educated. And I think that, that's on, people like Brooklyn Terry, who has been here way longer than me and been able to travel around the country. And then they bring people like my homie Yuji. He brought Mikey here. And he brings various people here, and then they educate people, so they do the knowledge on that. And I thought that's where it's not so prominent now because of all the stuff that's happening with African Bambaataa, but where the Zulu Nation was more important because they were the ambassadors who were living here and passing on that knowledge. And I think people like me, or whoever who are here permanently or trying to be here permanently are doing that. So you have this generation who's much more into the culture and learning about the culture. They're learning about English and learning about hip hop. But I think there was a time where it wasn't as, and I don't think people cared. They were like, because then that's what happened was with hip hop. I mean, you can see that around the world. Yes, it started here. We respect that. We're trying to emulate that, but then we've created our own version. So I think like when you look at people like A-Witch or Anarchy, or other people, like A-Witch's experience in Okinawa and her experience, living in the States, she has her own identity, or Mighty Crown, who's doing reggae, but they've been respected and they put in that work. So people respect them as a Japanese reggae artist. Or like Anarchy, who's from this cat, he's a gangster rapper, he's from the hood, it's like he grew up like that. And so his music reflects that. Or even Nobody Knows in Nagoya. So I'm just rolling on names because these are people in my head. But I think, yes, they have there is Japanese hip hop culture. And at the root, it's obviously hip hop and the elements. And dance culture here is, I would say it goes dance, DJing, then graffiti, and then probably the rapping. So it's a totally different dynamic.
And I always remember, and I'll always say hands down, Japanese dancers are some of the best dancers. I mean, I think the Japanese take culture, especially when you talk about hip hop culture, they make it their own, and they kind of go beyond what you expect. They take it to third level Dan black belt style. It's like, it's nuts. It's like, how are you, like right now I've been watching this Japanese dancer who does double dutch while dancing to house and hip hop. And I'm like, he's doing double dutch. 2 jump ropes going at once and he's on beat. It's just like, I never thought of that. But it's because they respect the culture. They'll do it to the best of their ability.
I think that's why people are not so, because it is a respect, right? They're looking at it as an art form. And when you meet someone who, like, we bought a knife, right? And so we bought this knife. We was in Toyota, just at this place, bought a knife. And this guy, his father made knives and swords. His grandfather made swords. So they look at it as an art form. And they looking at it to master the art form. And you start to think, so when I look at hip hop and people talk about ageism, that's not what Japan is about. They're expecting you to dance forever and to master as many styles of dance. They're expecting you to draw forever. If you're a writer, they're expecting you to write forever. And they're expecting you by the time you are 75 and 80 to be a master, right? So people are expecting me to rap forever and to teach them when I'm 80, come to school and be like, yo, I've been rapping for 60, 70 years. Here is what I've learned. So it's a dip, it puts you in terms of culture. You're like, wow, like I've actually gained more appreciation for art because we tend to look at it more, we've been trained to look at it more in a fast food way, make an album, do this, do this, make this video, do that. But they're looking at it as art, but history, like you look at Vietnam, you look at Japan, you look at Korea, you look at China, you look at everything, and you go to Africa, India, in United States, we're babies, like as Americans, as a country, culture, hundreds of years old. These places are thousands of years old. So of course, they like, man, you don't know what you're talking about. You ain't 70. rap for 30 more years and holler at me, so it's a different, it's a different approach, which I can appreciate.
But that's a good thing that because now you're immersed, you get to see this, and now that you live there, you are also a part of the process of also educating as a teacher in many ways, right? Because you do have
Yeah.
your own school. You do, what's the age group of the students?
So we primarily teach elementary age kids, but we do have a few middle school students. And then because Itoko is a translator and she works with Toyota Beach Volleyball Team, she teaches the adults. But primarily elementary. So like first, second, third grade, fourth grade.
So here's, Professor Paul. You got seeds planted by long ago in the Bay Area that, hey, you should be a teacher. You rap, you have this unique educational acumen and view. And so do you embed that in your school, with your students, and that differentiates you from other schools?
I think so. I think the main thing that I tried to build is community. So initially, like when I looked at it from an outside perspective, looking at these English language schools, and we are moving our ideal more internationally. So not only are we teaching English, but we're teaching culture, and we're teaching it from a people's perspective. So brown people, all ranges of people. But obviously, I'm a Black person from the States. So there is that always there. It's unavoidable. And then my wife is an English language learner. She's prolific in both languages. So that is there as well. And then it's kind of put together. But we're building community. So that to me is something that I learned in the Bay Area, something that I learned from various movements, Black Panther Party, those things are part of who I am, and I want to put that out there. And so, yes, and then we're teaching English, and we're trying to do it in a way where we're teaching them a love of and a beauty of the language. Not just ABC or I can read this sentence or I can take this test, but really, can you learn something and hold on to it? Can you learn a joke? Can you learn what this art means? Can you sing a song? So really teaching them to put that right here. Not so much here. Obviously here is important, but here is more important, and have fun with it. And then, we definitely incorporate some hip hop. There's always some music playing. It's more like kids bop, but we get to the hip hop. We definitely like Electric Company. That's the joint. We are using those phonics things and really looking at nursery rhymes. And like I said, I do a hip hop English class. So as we get older, we're teaching them more of that culture as a part of American culture. And it's been fun. And our big thing is the library. So we got about 1,000 books at the moment that go from, the beginning of reading and just basic phonemics and phonemes and phonics, and then goes all the way into more complex stuff. But the library, like I said, is really important, and it's something that separates us. So I would say we have the biggest English library out of most of the schools in our area. And we've kind of pushed that. We have a library, come see our library. Even if you're not part of the school, you're part of our community. So, you can sign up for the library. So,
that's community building right there. Even if they're competitors, you're like, just come in. You come in. Let's check out some books, share that wealth of knowledge. And something I want to ask because of what's going on globally because of COVID-19, has the pandemic affected your ability to conduct your work and teach the kids, or have you found ways to implement new ways and pathways to teach your education?
Yes, and yes, you have no choice. So I think initially, the way that Japan, when they shut down, it was kind of on the fly, and they were shutting down first. Everything is Tokyo focused. So usually they kind of shut down Tokyo, and then they were looking at Osaka But then Aichi was like, we shutting down. We doing our own thing. And so then from there, everything shut down. And so yeah, for a while, like Maya was home. So I was trying to teach her and follow the program and also keep her English going. And then with my students, we were able to go online. And so through Google, and shouts out to Google because they really help educators with getting emails. So I had to make kids emails and I was doing all these things. And then we were using things like, Google Meet and Zoom to hold lessons. And then we basically just like disinfected everything. We cleaned everything. And then when it was time to open back up, right around Golden Week, right after Golden Week in Japan, which is like end of May. So June, things started to open back up. And then we slowly started to bring kids back on campus. But some kids stay online. And so we still do our online lessons. And so for me, another probably plus was that I lived in the Bay Area and technology was already incorporated into schooling and what I was doing at CDS or even at Berks. Or I did my program mostly online. So I learned how to build websites. I learned how to do online presentations through Cal State Teach, which is through Cal State Monterey Bay. And so I learned all that stuff and I was like, whoa, what are they just lined up. And so we were ready, probably more so than even, like traditional international schools. I know that some of the boarding schools had some struggles because they couldn't get kids back home. And so they were dealing with lots more issues. But for us, we had already bought computers. We had the library. So I was able to say, hey, take these 5 books, send me an email. I want you to read these every week and let's have a discussion or let's get online. And I think we did a good job. And even we were able to show that we were capable in any situation to educate the kids. But we learned a lot. We definitely also learned. Because it's hard to keep kids occupied. Like me and you, we can chop it up for hours, right? And we can find things and laugh. But a kid who's trying to learn, Constitution, or they're trying to learn why the AT and AN and all these different family groups, they're looking at me on this computer like, how are you going to do this? And I'm trying to be more animated and I'm trying to sing songs and bring some YouTube in there. And they're just like, yeah, okay.
Not having it at all. Professor
I'm at home.
It's not working.
Yeah. So then, like, I found my one dude, Natsu, he was just him and his sister. And I was like, what? So just take me around show me your house. And so then we started doing that. And then he was getting more into it because he can move around and he likes to move around. And then, yeah, you have to be creative. You have to say, well, what's on your wall? Let's talk about that. So then we did that. So yeah, I learned.
I mean, you definitely, you got to be creative in just, in education, hands down. You can follow the template, a green sheet for as long as you can till things go awry and off the tracks. And then you're like, all right, I got to do something else now. But definitely I can tell and why how you're expressing to your students and what you've done. You implemented the, tools for their success. Been very proactive in doing that for them and building that foundation for them to know that you care and the school cares and your education matters to me. So I'm here to help you learn. But also that it's, we're living in non-traditional times. So anything goes right now.
Yeah, you got to take it that way. You got to try to just make it so that they know that you're like, man, I kind of know what I'm doing, but we're doing this together. So what do you want to do? I hear daddy come here. Yes, yeah. Maya. She's asked me, is it past 10 o'clock? Right. I think so, Maya. So I'll talk to you in a little bit, okay?
Yeah, we'll wrap up soon right now. That's cute. That's cute.
Daddy still got to be daddy. Doesn't matter.
Hey, I'm not a pop, so I don't know. But, that's important. You got to do what you got to do. I'll rub it into you. Um, so like it's really amazing because I with this interview I'm getting a breath of knowing you as the artist, knowing you as the educator. Now I could say business owner, entrepreneur, but also a view of Japan from your from where you see it, and also the issues that are very important to our world, and that we know that at least there's discussions being had. There's still problems that need to be addressed. How do you are you continuing any projects currently that help move forward in the education beyond the school in terms of whether it's music, Black Lives Matter, or even for yourself, to self-edification of your understanding of Japan, your life, who you are as a person?
For sure. So what we did, especially with Black Lives Matter, is we marched. So we organized a march. There's a Black Lives Matter Nagoya group, which is a youth group. So they organized a youth march, which we participated in, and I had a chance to build with Maya, and then take her to the march. And then we had a BLM Tokai, which is a larger group. And we did that as well. So we've been able to connect and do more community work that way, which has been very eye-opening and having lots of discussions in the house, because I think the house is where it starts. And then from the house, you can then go out and build with people in a real way. And so, yeah, we've definitely been involved in that movement, been involved with trying to organize other activities. Like we're going to start a book club, and that will start in September. Yeah. So, that's just naturally, right, part of what we're doing with that. And I've been speaking a lot more, obviously having these conversations, the podcasts that I work with my man Tracy, called The Fire This Time. We've been having a lot of conversations with people across Japan, and making more connections about what can we do to keep this conversation going. Because I think that we've found through things like the Blossom Project and other things online that Japanese people are prime and they're ready, and they are not just saying that they're globally minded, they're actively trying to be more globally minded. And these conversations through Black Lives Matter have encouraged people, Black, white, Asian, whatever, to engage with each other and say, man, I support you, I'm with you, I'm showing solidarity. I know these issues exist. How can we move forward? And how can I be a part of that and supporting you and learning? So we've definitely found more solidarity, which is great. I mean, it makes me feel good. It energizes you, because sometimes you feel like I told you before, dealing with people and feeling like, yo, I see this on the TV, and there are, people still doing blackface and these things. And my man Baye, who works at Japan Times, has been really active, or my homegirl Elise, who did an amazing presentation on NHK in Japanese about the history of systematic racism and Black people, and how blackface got to Japan. And she did it all in Japanese. And I was like sitting there in tears, like, wow. I was like, because she's on TV. I was like, you're on Japanese TV.
That's national Japanese TV. It's a big network,
Yeah, and learning. And so, man, it was so emotional. My wife was like, why are you so emotional? I was like, because it's in Japanese and people care. A TV station thought that this was important for the future of Japan and for people to learn that this is not okay, because previously we've had a lot of pushback when these things have come up. And also that's really affecting the kids who are of mixed descent in their daily life. And so I think that the movements that have come have been received well, and people are really active. And I think that helps everyone, that helps anyone, not just Black people, but any other communities that are in Japan, any other issues that are coming up that are human rights issues, because, we're looking at this as a human rights issue, not just as like a racial thing, or it affects everyone. We need to treat each other well. We need to think about us collectively and how we can spread that positivity and that love and move forward together into the future, because a virus don't care. The virus don't care what you are, what you look like, what your orientation is, what kind of music. The virus is trying to take everybody out. And so we need to start looking at those differences as strengths and how we can connect to each other, and then, get rid of this virus. And racism is definitely a virus too. So we need to get rid of that.
Virus. It's a long road to unity, brother. I'll tell you that, but we can transverse this together. That's why we're connecting. That's why we're building. And I really appreciate you spending your morning in Japan right now to talk to us and really let us know that there's other voices and there are people out there who are also spreading that community, and that we need to be able to connect despite our differences or even distances. So it's great that I know that you're growing your success. Definitely, I'll be in Handa City for sure. When things get lifted, I can not self-quarantine for 2 weeks. Feels like 2 years. I'll be seeing you soon in the family, for sure.
Well, I just want to say thank you too, brother. I feel like what you are doing is important. Your journey is important, and it's good to see a brother rooted in his faith and rooted in his purpose. And, even this old Black Buddhist over here, I can appreciate it. Because it's important to have faith. It's important to have family. It's important to have purpose. And so I'm very proud of you. And I love watching you in your element. And I love seeing you, talk to people and spread these messages of learning and of books, because we need books. And we really need, we need each other. So I just want to say that I love you and I'm proud of you.
I love you too, brother. And that it's because we're storytellers and we share stories. And so as a librarian, I gotta share your story, and the people will definitely hear it soon enough. So any last shout outs before we go?
Yeah, check out the library. Go get you a library card. Get it on, online.
Yep.
And join a book club. Support, this solidarity. Make sure y'all get out and vote, because voting is important regardless of what you feel like we have to vote for. We're voting for a branch, the executive branch. So there are lots of things on the line. And it's good to have dialogue and conversation. And definitely check me out at paulierhyme.com. Check me out on the social media. I appreciate everybody, and keep learning. Keep loving, keep learning.
Keep learning.
Shouts out to my wife. Yes, check out Chubu International, CHUBUIS.com. And we're on the social, all the social media. But yeah, I'm inviting anybody to come out and build, community with us. And, my house is open, the school is open. When all of this stuff lifts up, please come to Japan. And I'm definitely coming to the Bay Area. And I'm definitely coming to Ohio. And I'm definitely going to Okinawa. So please come visit us.
Handa City, ikimashou, yo. Let's do it.
Yeah. All
right, Paul. It's great talking to you, man. I hope to see you soon, brother.
Likewise. Peace.